what a way to end it though with this show. Spending a bit of time with two fine gents. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm a bit sore. Went in for just a routine checkup at the dentist and said they noticed that they needed to refill my filling. So she said you can come back, or we can do it today, save you coming back. And by the time I'd have a think about it, she'd sat me down, got the needle in my mouth, and she was numbing me. So
Nice.
I've been rather numb, so I could dribble a little bit on the show. So something to watch out for. But we'll come to another stud. Definitely no dribbly people here. Mags, who you can follow on X at Hot Seat Mags. Mags, how you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I think some of your dribble got on the hands of Marquez Valdez-Scantling, by the way, on Monday night. Like, just what an absolute joke. So yeah, ready to go with Dynasty. Hey, maybe we should call you the Dynasty drill for today, right?
Yeah, fitting. Love it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to recap week 11. There was plenty that happened this week. A lot more negative things than positive. But we're going to recap what happened and obviously the Dynasty impact going forward. So without further ado, we'll come to the GOAT, Kev. You've got a rather negative subject of history repeating itself. But how are we going to cope with it in Dynasty going forward?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, just looking back on week 11, it's just littered with major injuries, like in the build up to the week, and then even on game day itself. So it's been really tough as a Dynasty manager these past 7 days. We're going to cover 3 guys on the show in the main with major injuries, but first guy coming to is Joe Burrow, and it's all about history repeating itself again. We know he's had a season-ending injury before. He's got another one now. With the thumb injury, I think long-term concerns do have to start creeping a little bit at this stage because it's happened twice. He's getting sacked a ton when you compare the numbers to the likes of Andrew Luck, someone that retired. It's pretty scary with what's going on. Plus, he's a pocket passer. People do seem to have this notion that if you're a running QB, you're more likely to get injured. That's not true because running QBs, they generally know when they're going to get smashed. If you're a pocket QB, it's usually somebody falling at your legs or you can't see them hitting you. So I think that doesn't work in his favour. There's some long-term concerns there for me personally. I'm really intrigued to see how the market reacts because with that name value, I think that you're not going to get too much of a discount. People are already probably higher than, in my opinion, they should be on Burrow based on fantasy itself. A lot of it has been based on what he does in real life, which, by the way, is fantastic what he does in real life in a great situation. But yeah, I just think I'm intrigued to see how the market reacts. Trade-wise, if I'm a contender and I've got Burrow, you need to make the move. You can't just hope to do nothing unless you've got an absolute star QB3. Looking at what Burrow's done, QB 21 fantasy points per game. It's not amazing, but I do think he's had a couple of injuries, had a game where obviously he's left early. So that maybe is slightly inflated, but I think contender-wise, you've got to be looking to pivot someone like, I don't know. Can you buy a Baker Mayfield? Can you buy a Josh Dobbs on the cheap, maybe a second? And then sort of if you want to try and keep Burrow on your roster, I think if you're looking elsewhere, guys like Kyler Murray, guys like Trevor Lawrence, if you're moving off Burrow to one of those guys, it's got to be someone I think that has the potential to get back above Burrow in value when he's fully healthy, because if you're going that far down that you can't get your money back as such or get your value back, it's probably easier to go for the alternative and go for a Baker, go for a Dobbs, etc. So I've got a lot of pause. I've got a lot of concerns with the Joe Burrow injury. I've been low the market traditionally over time. So yeah, I guess I'm low on Burrow. It'd be great to hear your thoughts on how you guys think it will affect his weapons and maybe an alternative guy that's coming into the Bengals that could be quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about the injuries, right? I mean, you could build like an amazing team out of like You could have Anthony Richardson at quarterback. You could have J.K. Dobbins and Nick Chubb as your running backs. You could have Justin Jefferson and Mike Williams as your wide receivers. This is just like we're not even including like Joe Burrow in here. Like this is crazy amount of injuries that have happened this year. I don't really know what you can do with them. I'm also worried about, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins as well. Like we got Jake Browning, right? What's he called? Jake Browning, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know who the
Same
guy
initials.
is. He's. I mean, he's got Brown in his name, and I suspect that's what we'll see. I am a bit worried for T. Higgins anyway. But now that Jake Browning's in, I think T. Higgins is maybe someone that you just don't start in your teams going forward. Jake Browning, you never know what's going to happen. I'm certainly not throwing him in any lineups until I see, something good. I mean, one of the main issues you talked about, Kev, is Joe Burrow. And I mean, can we say that the Bengals have horrendously mismanaged the best player they've had for, the past 20 years at least, right? I mean, This is the guy that came into the season injured and they forced him to play anyway. This is a guy that was injured in the build-up to the game and they forced him to play anyway. This is a guy who, as a rookie, they let take a record number of sacks before he was out for the season. They're going to ruin this guy, and they're going to be kicking themselves for it because you're right. They could end up like an Andrew Luck situation. Then he got Jamar Chase, rotting away with nobody throwing him the ball. And I just think if I'm a Bengals fan, I'm actively annoyed at the general management, the manager. I'm annoyed at how this has even been allowed to happen at all because they're slowly ruining him, and he's a brilliant player, and it's sad to see, I think.
Yeah, it's sad to see. I certainly think if there ever was, which hasn't been up to now, if there was a time where you could buy Jamar Chase, it's probably you can paint the picture to someone that owns him that's trying to contend that, trade down to, a CeeDee Lamb. You wouldn't want to put much on top to get Chase, but I
know.
Straight up, definitely. The weapons take a massive hit. It's really sad to see. We'll see how it affects Joe Mixon going forward. But in terms of the quarterback, Jake Browning, it's certainly in contention because you just via default, if he can just be fine, you've got a guy that has got amazing weapons around him. All right, the offensive line is not great, but in terms of the weapons, if he can just get the ball out of his hands quickly to his weapons, he can survive and he can be useful. I think we saw him come in against the Ravens, who are the top 2-3 defense in the NFL this year, and he didn't turn the ball over. He actually threw that touchdown, which saved a lot of people's blushes with who had Jamar Chase this week. And he even ran for 40 yards, which is, if he can do that, it might be scrambles. It might not look pretty. But if he's giving you 30, 40 yards on the ground each week, that gives you another safe baseline to reach. And I mean, on the face of it, you don't want to be starting Jake Browning. I'd much rather start a Baker Mayfield or a Josh Dobbs even. But if you have to, then I don't think it's the worst. When you look around the league and you look at Desmond Ridder's back this week, you've got Derek Carr that's banged up. You've got Geno Smith that might be not be able to go this week. So, I mean, how many backups are just playing right now? So, I mean, Jake Browning's not going to finish the lowest quarterback in the week in terms of points. So, yeah, I wouldn't be too aggressive, but if you're desperate, it's an option to have, especially if you've got that stack, just because hopefully he's going to hyper-target Jamar Chase or T. Higgins if he gets back. Yeah, it's not great. I blame Hannah for this situation. Yeah, not nice. And we're not really going to pick up the mood either, because we're going to move from one quarterback that's injured to another one. We've got a great name for this guy. A lot of people would wish him dead. He is actually dead in the fantasy realms for the season. But we're moving on to Deshaun Watson, and over to you, Mags.
Yeah, Deshaun of the Dead. Absolutely love this. I mean, this is a long-term, for me anyway, Deshaun Watson, this is a long-term dynasty play, a long-term dynasty investment. Deshaun Watson is my most owned quarterback in Dynasty Fantasy Football. J.K. Dobbins, my most owned running back in Dynasty. Well, I'll not get into it. This is now about the time where I'm just like, man, I'm getting real fed up here. Because I bought him at a really big discount, whenever everything was happening with the allegations and the suspension and the year out and everything. I bought him at a discount knowing that eventually his value would creep up above that, and I should be able to pivot off him and maybe sell a few of them. And I still believe that Deshaun Watson is a very high caliber quarterback. And now just whenever he's literally played like his best half of football as a Cleveland Brown with a broken shoulder, he's out for the season. I'm getting a bit fed up. I'm going to try and stay patient. I think it would be foolish of me to sell him now because the value's going to be higher at the start of next season when he's back. So it'd be stupid of me to sell now, probably, unless I'm absolutely desperate. But do you guys have any kind of time limit on these kind of long-term investments? Are you saying after this long, if it's not working, I'm just going to cut ties, or does it kind of depend on the player? Kev, what do you think about that?
I think it's player dependent. Cost of what you've probably paid to acquire him, or what your expectations were. It's going to be almost impossible to move him now. I'm very much of the opinion that if you want to buy Deshaun Watson in Dynasty, you can do it pretty easily. It's tricky to say what time scale you put on an asset, because I do agree with you. You've been holding on and waiting for him to get to leave Houston, and then waiting for him to be available to play for the Browns, and then waiting for him to get through the injury. So, imagine if you're a rebuilding side and you're trying to plan for when you're going to compete and you've got Watson on your roster. It's like, right, this is my year. No, wait, we're going to put it back here. It's becoming a headache. Yeah,
absolutely. Ali, do you think there's anything are you trying to buy him right now even? Or are you just cutting ties with him where you have him?
I'd love to cut ties with him, but I do want to win eventually. So, I mean, he's definitely more on a buy side and easier to buy side than he would be to sell. I just think you can buy him and you could probably get a really nice production right now. And selling him is just so hard unless you're desperate, because I just think, I think I brought this up maybe a week or two ago, that there's just not many quarterbacks that are going to be starters next year. You're taking a massive risk. If you're selling him, Deshaun Watson, because of that horrendous contract that the Browns have given him, is going to be the starter next year after, injury dependent. So you've got a safe prospect and a guy that has finished quarterback 5 for 3 years in a row. All right, we're not going to see that Deshaun Watson anymore, but he's still a top 12, top 15 option when he is healthy. He's not played to that level yet this year, but I think he will eventually get there. And if you're trading him away, nobody who's got one of them safe 12, 14 quarterbacks are going to trade you their quarterback for Deshaun Watson unless you're putting a handsome fee on top. So I just think, you just have to hold him. I think that's the answer, is you hold him, you overpay for another quarterback, but you could easily buy him at the same time. Yeah,
there's no chance Joe Flacco comes in and balls out and starts, or even Dorian Thompson-Robinson, right, who's looked okay, right? He's going to be the starter next year, right? We can at least be safe with that, right?
Yeah, he's going to be the starter next season. I do think Joe Flacco was a very sneaky ad because Sleeper had him on. Didn't have him on a team, so he wasn't part of waivers as such. He could be added. I did that in a few places, which got a few comments here and there, but what's the worst that can happen? It can't be worse than PJ Walker, can it? So I think he'll have a job next year, no doubt. I just think if you're rebuilding, it is the main one, easy to buy. Guys like Howell, Levis, Jordan Love, is still in my eyes. They've got less job security next season than Watson. So they're easy moves to make if you are truly rebuilding.
Yep, absolutely love going after the injured quarterbacks. I was doing it for Kyler Murray all last off season when the price was low, and instantly now he's back and looking pretty good. His price is going to shoot up, and will be the same with Deshaun Watson until he gets injured again and needs another massage or something like that. We'll move on to a more positive subject, and we'll talk about one that's not always a positive subject, but we're going to talk about the tight end landscape. And this is coming off the back of listening to the Wildcard Rewind crew. Their show went out this week and it was fantastic. They had a good breakdown of the tight end position, so go and give that a listen. They talked about the top 5 performers this week, this season so far, and it obviously mentioned you've got TJ Hawkinson, who's number 1 in total points. You've got Kelsey, who's still the king in points per game, although when you look at his points per game, slightly down from 18.6 to 17.3, which I don't think is nothing. I think it's something. You've got George Kittle, who's now up to tight end 3, but he's boom and bust, as he always will be. Then you've got people who were drafted early, like Kyle Pitts, who is a bit pathetic. But I want to more focus on the 2 rookies that one of them we spoke about quite a bit this year in Sam Laporta. The other one in Dalton Kincaid. Music to Mag's ears. But this is just, is this the start of rookies breaking the rookie tight end mold? Because we've seen it from not just one of these, but both of them. Obviously, Sam Laporta setting records early on the season. He has cooled a little bit since, back down to probably where we expected him to be. Dalton Kincaid has been absolutely unreal since the bye. He's tight end 5 since the bye, 15.2 fantasy points per game. He's just the second option in that team. I personally think, just looking at sort of bigger picture Dynasty rankings tiers, these 2 are fully deserving to be in the top tier for Dynasty for me. I've got a tier of 5 now, so no longer have I got Kelsey in a tier of his own. I had Andrews there at 1 this year. I think there is a tier of 5 where you can probably rank these in all sorts of orders, to be honest. You've obviously got Laporta, Hawkinson, Kelsey, Andrews, and Kincaid. I think when you look at a lot of rankings, they've still got Sam Laporta in a tier ahead of Dalton Kincaid, which personally I think is extremely foolish. I would be traded, straight up the value is exactly the same. I know Kev took a bit of flack this week with a comment he put out, but I'm in total agreement with what he said. I think after this tier of 5, I think it gets interesting, but I still think there's really relevant guys. So I've got like Trey McBride just after them, George Kittle, and then followed by Kyle Pitts. Still got the talent. I think he still has to be ranked there in case something does change in the future. Jake Ferguson, I think he deserves to be up there. Dallas Goedert, he'll come back fine. Cole Kmet, who's been really good, and Dalton Schultz, really impressive this year. I do think that there is a lot more viable options for tight end this year. We're not seeing that group of, say, 3 or 4 that are running away with it, where if you're a contender, you had to get one of these. I do think that there's 7 or 8 guys now that you can, like for startups next year, you can probably wait now on tight end. I think the tight end strategy personally is going to change, where you can wait on tight end. You've obviously got Brock Bowers coming into the mix next year. Really, solid elite prospect. So I do think that there's other guys like Evan Engram that I've not spoken about. Pat Frymuth. There's plenty that I think can give you a safe level of points in fantasy. So I think the strategy and the landscape in tight ends is going to change from next season, and we're seeing it this year. So just boys, I want to get Kev first. I want to know what your sort of top tight end tiers look like. And then I'll be starting to see the decline finally of Travis Kelce. I know I saw on Twitter, was it yesterday, that a quote from him just saying that he's taking so many beatings this year, and he said he's had enough. He's getting fed up. So is the time coming where Kelce's gonna fall off, and we have to start talking about him in sort of a different value?
Yeah, I think first of all, Kelsey, it feels a little bit like Tom Brady towards the end, where you're always thinking it's this year, this is the year. And anybody that bought Tom Brady at that time, they just made so much profit off it because he just kept playing and playing and playing and playing. I could see something similar where it is year to year with Kelsey. Like, you can tell a story, Chiefs win Super Bowl this season. Mm-hmm. Does he want to stay and go for the three-peat, the treble as such? If they lose, let's say they get to the Super Bowl and then losing the final. Will he walk away? I don't think he will. I think he's that much of a competitor. There is a little bit of an alarm bell in the back of my mind, because if you remember back to the streamathon in May, our good friend Maddie Kroll did actually mention Kelsey retirement and some intel on that. So there might be a little bit into it, but I just think truly as a competitor that he is, I can't see him hanging it up. I think he's still got to be in that top 5, top 6. I think you are right, Ali. Actually, the landscape is changing. I think if I'm a contender, I still definitely easily want Kelsey number 1. But then after that, because I play this year, next year, it's probably, with the injury now, it's Hawkinson too, which talent-wise I don't think is amazing, but I just think that situation, the volume, what sort of boom weeks can have, it's great. I mean, I nearly got killed on Twitter, X, from saying Sam Laporta's not in the Hall of Fame already. He's played 11 games and people are crowning him as tight end 1, and he cannot miss it. There's no way on earth that he cannot be outside the top 3, top 4 in a year's time, which that honestly is probably the most frustrating interaction I've had in my life on X, because people are just so stupid and not understanding the range of outcomes. But back to Kelsey, I think there is a mild concern, but if I'm a contender, I want him on my roster.
Yeah, and I will touch bases with you, Mags, with Kelsey, as you are the Chiefs fan. Do you think there's a scenario where Kelsey could walk away, perhaps the end of this season, end of next season? Obviously, he's got a lot going on. He's got Taylor Swift by his side now. He's an absolute superstar in America. And then also, what do you think the startup strategy for tight ends will be next year? Are you in agreement with me that there's sort of a lot more tight ends now that people can feel confident to own, or do you think they still want the top 2 or 3 guys?
Yeah, the Kelsey one's an interesting one. Like, he's obviously dating Taylor Swift. He's got a very successful podcast. Like, he's already a millionaire, right? He's got no real reason to stick around. But I mean, he's had no real reason to stick around before that. It's not like he's a spring chicken. Like, it's not like if he retired last year, people would have said he retired early. Like, he is an older guy. He's the oldest player on the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, he's not like a guy that we're expecting to be around for a long time, but he's still got it. Like, he's still performing really, really well. He's made a few more mistakes this year than perhaps other years, but I mean, we're talking about Travis Kelce having a down year, and he's the best tight end in points per game. So, like, it's not exactly a down year. I would be surprised to see him go at the end of this year. I don't know what his contract situation is, but I can only assume he'll just play to the end of his contract and go from there. So I don't think it's up at the end of this year, maybe the end of next year. I need to look into it, to be honest. But yeah, I don't see Kelsey going anywhere. I think he's going to remain top of the tight end. Like, what's going to happen is everyone's questioning him, and he's going to come out and just have an absolute baller week, over 100 yards. Probably just a quick wrap. The touchdowns he's not had a single game with more than 1 touchdown yet. So I think if that starts to creep in as well, then you'll see him shoot up the rankings and see him old Travis Kelce as usual.
Yeah. My Scott Fishbowl team will appreciate him scoring a couple of touchdowns this week, because he's been slightly disappointing recently. We'll keep the theme of the tight end theme running, and we'll move on to someone else who we didn't really talk about there, and Mark Andrews. So back to you, Kev, with the injured player and how we're going to treat him for Dynasty.
Yeah, I'm being a bit glum this week, talking all the injuries and starting fights on X, etc. But Mark Andrews is a guy that's missing, and it's been a big miss for me. Like, I remember a couple of weeks back in the league, we were in together, Ali, and it's been a sort of rebuilding side, and it's coming together nicely. I thought, right, missing that tight end, let's grab Mark Andrews for the win, and now he's gone. So I'm back to some sort of concoction of Njoku and Logan Thomas in that league, which pretty disappointing when you put your chips in. I think, first of all, strategy-wise, buying the running back and tight end at the end is the right strategy for me. I know I got a flack this week for people saying, you should build around tight end. Like, why? It's a risky position. There's been about 10 different tight end ones in the last 5 years. But anyway, Mark Andrews. We're back to Mark Andrews. I'm not going to get caught up in that again. So I think first of all, injury is massive. There's plenty to factor in terms of opportunities within the Ravens at wide receiver and at tight end, but I just want to think about his dynasty value now. We can see on Keep Trade Cut he's at tight end 5. How will that look to start 2024? You've got Brock Bowers to come in. You've got these young tight ends that are going to be solidified up there. Laporte, Kincaid, they're going to be appealing to most teams. If Trey McBride has an amazing finish this season, could he start creeping up there as well? There's lots to think about, but Mark Andrews for me, we're going to probably see it in the next 2 years where he leaps Kelsey with age/retirement or whatever, because when he's on it, like literally, if you're thinking redraft, it is tight end 2 behind Kelsey. If you're just thinking this season, so I think there's potential to buy on him and just make a really easy profit. Because his tight end 5 is not going to be that in my eyes when it's the start of next season. So again, there's a common theme here. If you're rebuilding, target injured players, you've got to take on risk as a rebuilder, and that injury risk will more than not pay off in the end, especially someone that's established like Mark Andrews as well. But yeah, I think if you had a contender with him, I mentioned that like paying down for tight end, that's probably not going to work, because you can pay really low prices for some of the guys I mentioned then. Yeah, I do think there's options in that top 10 you could pivot to. Could you pivot to George Kittle? Potentially, straight up, I think. You could do that move if you really want to push the chips in as such. But yeah, I just think that's a big tier still. If I could pivot to any of those, I probably would actually on Mark Andrews in that tier of 5, even the youngsters, just on the basis that they could become sort of Mark Andrews, even though the market's already saying they're there.
Yeah. And Max, over to you for the impact of Mark Andrews' injury in terms of Lamar, the wide receivers, because someone's going to have to pick up the slack. Lamar's not going to have his safe haven of Mark Andrews. So what do you think the impact is to those guys?
Yeah, you know what? We can actually see the new offense working here, because if this happened last year, I would tell you that Lamar Jackson is screwed. But I mean, we're seeing him pass the ball a lot better this year. You know, Mark Andrews' highest yardage total this season is 80 yards. He's not cracked 80 yards yet. Wow. So we're seeing him actually rely a little bit less on him in the open field. He's still that massive red zone threat for them, and they might have difficulty replacing him there because, you know, certainly the wide receivers don't scream red zone threat to me whenever you look at them on paper. Maybe someone like Isaiah Likely can fill the role there, or will they just give it to Gus Bus and just hammer it home like normal, right? I'm actually not too worried about Lamar and the receivers. If anything, I actually think people like Flowers or OBJ, or we've even seen some glimpses of Rashad Bateman now and again, but he's obviously not living up to the hype. I actually think it'll be a small bump for them, and the Ravens have been that good that I don't know if they're going to miss them as, you know, you might expect they would miss them, because they are coming on as a team so well. So good news if you're a Ravens fan, I think, and good news if you're a Lamar owner. Not so good if you're a Mark Andrews owner, though, sadly.
No, and we'll discuss just, I'll mention if obviously you've got Mark Andrews, which a lot of people will have, and they were obviously thinking they were contenders. Perhaps you've got Isaiah Likely on your roster, and is he going to be fine for the rest of the season? Well, we've seen Isaiah Likely, and we've seen he has got a fairly high ceiling, but if I'm a contender, there's no way that I'm resting on and banking on Isaiah Likely to win me the championship. I don't think it's going to happen. I think OBJ is going to be someone that he's really startable going forward. I think he's looked, pretty fast again. He had the 100-yard game. He's scoring touchdowns. He's a sneaky league winner. But in terms of pivoting to other tight ends, I think Kev has sort of nailed it. I think you're going to want to go boom bust. If I get to the playoffs, I want to go out fighting, shooting. I don't want someone that's going to be safe. I want to win. So George Kittle, he could be on someone's roster that's not particularly contending, one of the top 2 or 3 guys. is someone that I think you can trade for. Someone that a bit beyond, you're talking like a Dalton Schultz that is really balling out this year. We've seen the high ceiling. He's had tight end 1 overall games this year, so I really like him. I'd even sneakily, someone like a Taysom Hill. I know it's absolutely awful, but it's somewhat. I would rather. If we're talking veterans, Taysom Hill, I will go down shooting with Taysom Hill because we're seeing the ceiling. But then I think the smart people will try and go for Dalton Kincaid. A lot of people that they don't have him in the same tier as Sam Laporta. You could make that trade for Dalton Kincaid. Maybe not on a contender because he had such a slow start to the season if he's the tight end 1. Or obviously Trey McBride. Trey McBride could be probably the number 1 target to go after because the volume is just enormous for Trey McBride, especially if you're playing PPR. Tight end premium even better. I think Trey McBride would be probably the 1 target that I would go for first.
Hey Ali, in that league where I've just got Mark Andrews, you've got Trey McBride. What we're saying?
Let's talk. Let's talk. That could work.
Watch your space.
It's going to be an interesting one. We'll move on to Mag's topic, and this is I like this one, being it's Thanksgiving this week coming, which is my favourite evening of the year to watch the games. We're going to come up with players that we're thankful for, Dynasty players we're thankful for this week. So Mags, kick us off.
Yeah, so I'm going to start us off with a quarterback that I'm thankful for, and I just had a little look at the fantastic tool over at Dynasty Planet. Not a paid sponsor, but still a great tool nonetheless. It's got a great rostership tool. Just kind of tells you who your most owned players are, and mine's an absolute, just IR, just everywhere you can look. But one guy at the very top, quarterback, is my man Tua. He's sitting up there. I've got 22% exposure to Tua. He's sitting at quarterback 11 this year. I've not had to worry about him at all. I put Tua in every single week that I could. He's done perfectly well every single week. I've had no issues with any of the concussions, thank goodness. He's just been a safe, reliable, non-injured pair of hands. So thank you, Tua.
Love that. You've tasked me with wide receiver, so a couple came to mind. AJ Brown, who's outperforming my expectation. I thought that him and Devonta Smith would be really close in fantasy points. But I've gone for someone that's given me such a safe floor every week in Brandon Ayuk, someone that I've got a lot of him. I've got a lot of him stacked with Brock Purdy. I absolutely love Brock Purdy for Dynasty. And Ayuk is someone that I ranked when my rankings came out. Start of the season, I had him. He was over 15, 17, wide receiver 15, 17. He was the person that most people commented saying they thought was too high. And, well, when you look at the rankings now, you've got Brandon Ayuk. He's well up there now, and sometimes he's even higher than this. So Brandon Ayuk, I absolutely love him. He's always present. You've got Debo, who often picks up the injuries. But Brandon Ayuk is just absolutely balling out right now. Had the long touchdown catch against the Bucks this week. Really getting up there, and I think he's finally getting to that level where he's probably not quite elite, but he is becoming the wide receiver 1 on that team, and just looking fantastic for Dynasty.
Yeah, and running back, I mean, it feels to me a little bit like you've set me up here. It feels like that Simpsons episode where Bart Simpson does the line, I didn't do it. And he's trying to talk about something else, like, just say the line. And people expect me to say Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm sure anybody that knows me will be saying that. And I could go that way. Plus, he's playing on Thanksgiving, so it would have been perfect. But I'm going to, again, pick someone that's highly rostered by me, but maybe not spoke about much this season. That's DeAndre Swift. I just think he's had a great season, running back 7 on the year. It's actually running back 12 fantasy points per game. But I think it was one of those where it could have gone either way for most people. I had that belief, that trust in the talent, and it's worked out in a way. So I'm really thankful for Swift for proving me right. And it was, just really thankful because I've got a lot of him, and I've been trying to pivot like early on in the season. Nobody wanted to know. So maybe if I can get some Thanksgiving trades done, just to get a little bit of exposure down, because even though I do love him and I'm thankful to him, I don't want to be over the top on running backs percentage ownership wise.
Yeah, correct. He's actually someone that I really don't like right now. He's a great running back. He's looking really good on that Eagles offense, but I faded him for DFS against the Chiefs and definitely made me look foolish. And I took plenty of cheeky punts on Rashad Penny being the guy on the Eagles this year. And let's speak of that the better, really, because it didn't work out. But I tell you, someone that it did work out for is someone that we've all been a fan of pre-draft, and especially now in the NFL with this guy absolutely balling. It's Tank Dell, the pocket rocket, the 5'8", 165-pound absolute god, the little man. Yeah, he's the little man making the giant strides in the Dynasty landscape, because I mean, not only this rookie 3rd round pick, perhaps sometimes 4th round pick, he's been not only been a viable starter this year for NFL, on your rosters in fantasy. He's actually been, lately, he's a must start. You have to start him right now because of the rapport he's got with CJ Stroud. He's actually setting franchise records this week, 146 yards and securing his 6th touchdown on the season, which I think is a record for a rookie. And to be honest, we should have seen it coming when you look at his college stats. The homeboy coming out of Houston College, going to the Houston Texans. The final 2 years of his time there in college, he had 30 touchdowns, which is absolutely insane. Led the nation in touchdowns in 2022 with 17. Led the nation in receiving yardage, 1,398. Yeah, we should have all seen it coming. There was so many people. We've all had our doubts regarding the size of the guy because he was so minute. Could he take the hits in the NFL? But yeah, that's all been put to bed now because he's showed that he's strong enough, he's capable of, and he's absolute balling right now. And obviously linking him up with CJ Stroud in Dynasty has been an absolute revelation. I didn't expect it just to look this good this early on. I just thought you're taking a rookie quarterback that a lot of people had doubts on. You got a lot of people looking at the wide receiver core, his weapons that he had. There's no names there at the start of the season. People think of this offense could absolutely stink, and it's been the complete opposite. It's just been unbelievable how CJ Stroud has been able to elevate these wide receivers this early in his career. You're talking Tank Dell, Nico Collins has really taken off as well. And then Noah Brown, when he's had to fill in, has been incredible as well. And just quickly looking on Keep Trade Cup for the show, Tank Dell and Nico Collins are both top 24 wide receivers in terms of their dynasty ranking, which I think they fully deserve to be there, linked to an elite quarterback in CJ Stroud going forward. In terms of Tank Dell, he's rapidly rising up my rankings. He's actually wide receiver 15 on Keep Trade Cut, which I think is possibly a little bit too high. I've not quite got him there, but he's probably not far off. And then interestingly enough, I put a couple of polls up on X yesterday about his price check. So it was Tank Dell or DK Metcalf, and it was 67% went for Tank Dell. And it was Tank Dell or T Higgins, and again, 64% went for Tank Dell. So that's quite telling. If you could trade him for those guys, perhaps that could be a move that you look to make. But yeah, Kev, are you as excited as what the community seems to be on Tank Dell? I know, we were fans of Tank Dell, and it's good to see him doing what he's doing now. And also, what do you see his outlook being in terms of dynasty long term?
Yeah, I don't think I can take too much credit for the Tank Dell love on this show. I know you and Mags like him a lot. I know Matt, when we was in the off season, he was a massive Tank Dell fan as well. I was sort of middle of the pack, and I think because of that, I didn't get a lot of him in rookie drafts or startups. Got a couple of shares. he's actually on a taxi squad in one league where it's just very strong at wide receiver and a little bit weaker at other positions. But I think what he's done is amazing. There's a lot of uncertainty in Houston before the season. I know we had 2 wildcard selections actually from Houston wide receivers. Neither of those were Tank Dell. John mentioned Nico Collins were 2 of the picks. So it's been a little bit of a shock how well CJ Stroud's done, that he's now QB3 above Josh Allen at keep trade cut. Pretty wild in my eyes, but Tank Dell's done fantastic. I think he's got to be considered around rookies like JSN, like Puka Nacua. It's got to be somewhere in that range because what he's done is fantastic. He's always appearing on our DFS show as well when we pick our flex players as undervalued guys that can boo. That weekly spike is fantastic for your flex spot in real life as well. So, in fantasy, which is real life. So, you've got to be really, really happy for that projection. I still have a little bit of worry because I think they've still got to add more to that offense to really, really maximise Stroud. I think Collins will look great. I think Dell's look great. Dalton Schultz, who would have thought he wasn't just a system guy at Dallas. Maybe it's a Texas thing there, but I think where he's going, wide receiver 15, I'd rather have T. Higgins, but I'll probably have Dell over DK Metcalf.
Yeah, that's saying something. Mags, would you rather have Tank Dell over DK Metcalf? And do you think wide receiver 15, do you think that's a little high? Would you be selling him at that cost? Or do you think you'd actually be buying him? Or would you just be holding him right now and just be thankful that what he's showing up?
It's so hard, isn't it? Like with DK, I'm like, it feels so wrong, but I think I'm with Kev. I think I would take Tank Dell. T. Higgins could end up being on the Houston Texans next year and actually being the number 1 target for CJ Stroud. We don't know what's going to happen with T. Higgins, so I'd be a bit more hesitant in giving up T. Higgins to get Tank Dell. I actually think, despite all the hype he's getting, and I mean, keep trade cut, my goodness me, you never know what you're going to find there, right? I do still think there is a small buy window for Tank Dell here. I'm not sure if people have fully realized that the Houston Texans are for real and Tank Dell is for real, so you might still be able to go out there and like sneak in with a little buy window for Tank Dell here, but the window is closing rapidly, so I'll maybe go out and try and buy a few. But I picked up Tank Dell a lot in the 3rd round of rookie drafts, which is brilliant. I mean, just that value seems like, isn't this very similar to the way we were talking about Amon-Ra St. Brown just a few years ago, right? And now just look at him now, right? He's worth 3 firsts easily now. So Tank Dell, if his stock continues to rise, he can end up there with Amon-Ra St. Brown. And also, I noticed, just looking at the show sheet, his name also kind of a weird palindrome, right? You spell Tank Dell backwards, you get lead Gnat, and he is a small guy made of lead because he's absolutely smashing it. So love me some Tank Dell.
Oh, that's lovely. That is great. Just one word from you both. Would you rather have Tank Dell or JSN in Dynasty? Kev?
God, JSN.
Mags?
Yeah, I'll stick to the preseason ranks. I'll stick with JSN.
But it was an uncomfortable selection.
Yeah.
I'd love to stick Tank Dell next to DK Metcalf in real life.
Me too.
That would be a funny picture. And on that note, we are going to wrap up tonight's show where we've recapped week 11 of the Dynasty season, rapidly approaching the fantasy playoffs. It's really getting interesting. So hopefully there's some moves to make, especially with them injured guys. So thank you for tuning in. Be sure to follow us and subscribe on X and YouTube at Fantasy Wildcard and Wildcard Dynasty. Join us every Tuesday for our show in season. Thank you once again. Have a good one, and we'll see you again.